with Mr. Post, the mayor of Palatine Bridge. And Kelly, who was here earlier, has been on the telephone a lot with the State Department, trying to figure out exactly what the town of Palatine is able to do with both villages. The last rendition, and I think what is going to stand up and be in written form between the state and the town of Palatine, indicates that we cannot have two separate accounts for the two villages. And the money in the highway department, the way that it's spread out now, is based on per thousand rate of assessed value. And because of the diversity in assessment between the two villages, the village of Palatine Bridge's assessed values being much higher than the village of Nelliston, with the current makeup, we are not able to treat them equally, although Artie's diaries show that the workload and equipment that goes into that work is almost identical. As I said at the beginning, it's misappropriation or misuse of taxpayers' funds. In this last year's budget, because we raised the budget to include equipment purchases for the town of Palatine, it made the money go up. We even asked the state if we could average back 5 years or average back 3 years and give some money back to the villages. And they say that that money legally is given by the taxpayers through property assessment. That is the only avenue available. And if we separate the three entities, we can do whatever we please by contract. And going forward, if we leave it the way that it is, it will be unfair whether it's low or it's high. And it's unpredictable from year to year. I can't see the two villages being tied to our expenditures. Suppose we spend a lot of money one year and very little money the next, or if this current board isn't here, you'll note for 40 years prior, nobody brought this subject up. I didn't need to bring it up. I didn't need all the crap that went with this, but my job here is try to be fair to the taxpayers of the town of Palatine. By the way, the village of Palatine Bridge and the village of Nelliston pay taxes to the town of Palatine. They're taxpayers. I want to try to be fair. And Jim is pretty much on board. We have to do this by contract. And since, after talking to the town of Palatine people, Sean has been primarily driving the numbers, and talking to the village, the best way to do with the villages, because of their difference in budget years, would be to charge them in arrears. We're talking about $20,000 worth of work, roughly, including materials, in both villages. What I am proposing to this board is, we charge the village of Palatine Bridge $4,000 from January to January. We're still doing everything we're doing through the end of this budget year. We charge them $4,000 for $20,000 worth of work. The thing will catch up with itself. I don't know exactly when, but it will catch up with itself. And we charge them, and they pay sometime in June. I don't want to disturb this budget year for the villages. I want to give them time to adjust. And by the way, they can decide to have someone else do the work. I don't know why on earth they would. I mean, with Palatine, we pretty much worked it out, Palatine Bridge, somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000, and that will give us till next budget year to get things straightened out so the people in the villages are not paying the same tax as the people in the country. See, we don't have the accounts in our system now, and we can't change them without permission from the state. So, we're tied up with what we can do. Is there any comments from the board?
Question of clarification. No, what I think you just said was, you proposed that Palatine Bridge, nothing about Nelliston,
That's right.
pay us $4,000 and continue to receive services that we've already provided them, the $4,000 being due June of 2020.
Yes.
And
Okay, go ahead.
that's what I think Bill said.
Yeah,
I think
I'm just trying to clarify this. So, and you're saying that there's an additive effect to where at some point, the balance would equalize.
See, there's another, that's right, that's the theory. But there's another thing too. I don't want to force the two villages, boards and mayors into saying every year, we're going to increase our taxes in excess of 2%, the 2% state rule on taxes. So we have time to work that out, and we also have, you know, the villages can buy the salt themselves, they can do any number of things, provide any amount of that service, and we can adjust the money. But if we do a 2-year contract, that'll bring us closer to level with them, where we should be. And in the meantime, we gotta talk to one another, share services or whatever. Long-term, there are gonna be about half as many municipalities in upstate New York. I have a letter here right now where they're consolidating the death and birth deals with Linda and with the two villages. It's all consolidation. The county's working on a $100,000 grant, trying to tell the state which one of us should survive. We have to be as best as we can matching services to costs.
Now, Nelliston wasn't involved in the discussion as yet.
No. I haven't had the discussions with Nelliston that I have had with Palatine Bridge, and Sean was right there. The three of us, Jim Post and Sean and myself, worked out something workable. And you gotta realize going forward, our assessed value in the town of Palatine is rising slowly. Palatine Bridge is gonna go up considerable over the next 10 years. With every year, more of the assessed value is added for Tractor Supply and for Dollar General. Their assessed values are gonna increase more. And I don't think any big business is going to move into Nelliston. And if it does, and we're treating Nelliston different than we treat Palatine Bridge, we can do different at that time. It's a 1-year or 2-year deal is all I want to do. I don't want to go way out and say, well, this is it forever. Now, the last deal, I know the guys that said the town of Palatine would do the plowing in the two villages. They were reasonable people, and it was a reasonable thing at that time. But it's not now. No.
I would feel a lot more comfortable to discuss this. Do you have the hard numbers?
Sean has all the numbers, yes.
No. Do you have the hard budgetary numbers that shows the shortfall over the past couple of years, and then that you're saying that we need to make this? Do you have?
What you have in front of you, Chris, is this right here.
Well, how did you?
Where the tax rates come from.
I'm asking you, how did you contrive that we're short? That's what and that we need to bill them this $4,000. How did you come up with this?
We come up with it because
You
we did it based on a 3-year budget, on the assessed values of what Nelson is assessed for and what Palatine Bridge is assessed
Okay,
for.
but how did you use our costs? What did you use to generate our costs?
Our costs?
Yes.
Our cost?
That guy right there.
He gave me his diary and I plugged in all the numbers. And it
So we
comes-
used historical budget line item costs broken out.
No, we used how many times the trips went down there.
We used actual numbers of what our expenses were by his diary. Every
Well,
time a truck
I'm
left the
asking you,
garage.
that's what I'm asking you. So obviously, it's what we spent broken out based upon some number per hour, per ton, per hour of truck, per fuel. So we have that. So we have all these numbers exact, is what you're saying.
No, they're not exact, Chris.
Okay, so how do we,
Yeah,
okay,
actually, these numbers are exact. The salt was $16,758. The labor cost was $8,257.75. The equipment cost was $14,250.25 for a total of $39,266. Then I added his pickup for going down and checking the villages, because maybe we didn't even have to, just because we had snow up here didn't mean we had snow down here. So adding his cost to his pickup in, come up with $43,122 divided by 2. That's $21,560 per village.
okay. Thank you, Sean. And these are based exactly on our costs
On our cost.
and broken out
Yes.
then,
From the
okay,
state reimbursement rates and what we pay for salt.
okay. Thank you.
And then,
Can I get a copy of that at some point? Not now, but at some point?
and then to go further, you have to figure out how much money each village paid in using the tax rates to our highway department. And the diversity there is what I'm trying to cure.
So out of the 21,560 times 3, which would be 60, well, because it's $21,000, 21,560 per year, obviously. Is this over 3 years or is this 1 year?
That's 1 year.
One
Let's
year,
not complicate it, 1 year.
Okay, well, okay, but you said you took a 3-year historical average to figure out where this is.
17, 18, and 19.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so out of that, then we took our revenues against that, and that's where you're coming up with this shortfall, which is roughly 20,000?
No, I didn't say that at all.
Well, then why are we billing 4,000 so it equals itself out? Explain to me where we took a 4,000 number off of this, because obviously there's a shortfall and there's a reality, or there's a surplus in reality. So could you?
It's a moving number, all right, if you take a 3-year average, the village has given us too much. You take a 5-year average and back in history, and they haven't given us enough. It goes up and down with the swings in the town of Palatine's budget. I can't see tying their snow and plowing and salting to the ups and downs in the town of Palatine's budget. It doesn't make sense to me.
Okay,
So
so
we're asking for the villages for the $4,000, because over a 2-year period, that number will zero out.
okay, so we're
Because, like you said, there's times they didn't pay us enough, there's times they paid us too much.
I get you. So I just want to be clear. You know, I like to understand it. So what you're saying, in the past 3 years, they've given us too much, but in 5 years they
No,
haven't.
only 1 year they gave us too much.
Okay. So this is where, okay. So 1 year they gave us too much, and the other 2 years they shorted us. And we're saying if we get $4,000 a year, not only will it take care of the shortfall of those 2 of those last 3 years, but going forward, it's gonna help out, even it out? Is that what we're
That's
saying?
exactly what we're saying.
Is it gonna snow next year? I
We
don't know.
We don't know.
Well, before we bill someone a number, I like to know the empirical data here, and I'm asking you the empirical data.
Well,
It sounds like I'm
if
getting a
we
little bit of a
could
tap
predict
dance.
the future for the snow, we'd have an easier job.
Okay, so all this is based upon the number of trips, is what you're saying, and out of the past 3 years, 1 year, we nailed the number of trips, and the past 2 years, we've taken a bath, and that's why we're asking for money.
Yes.
Thank you. Now I understand it, okay? And we don't know what the number is going next year, because we don't know what number of trips we're making, but we're going to ask for the money anyway.
Exactly.
Whatever,
Okay.
whatever you say.
Okay.
We're estimating a cost of around 20. And the 4, frankly, is a guesstimate. And it's something that I think the villages, they have much smaller budgets than we have. And we gotta have some kind of a cushion here and some kind of a transition period. I don't know But maybe we put way too much salt on our streets. I don't know if we plow them at the right time. Our trigger to when we go out of the barn and when we don't is different up in Stone Arabia than it is in the villages. I'm hoping the villages will take ownership of this project and contract with us in the future. There is a lot to be gained for the taxpayers that way. If the three boards can get along and we have a highway superintendent that has the record keeping that ours has, I think we can. But you know, jobs aren't forever, people aren't forever. Let's go a year or 2 years at a time. The other big thing here is the $62,000 truck we almost bought. We have one truck, and we have one truck that probably will go another 3 months, I don't know. And after that, somebody's gotta make a decision. I mean, this isn't the end-all answer to this deal. This is a step forward. And I think it's fair for all the taxpayers involved. If the state would let us have 2 accounts, one for Nelliston, one for Palatine Bridge, you know, we could go along pretty much like we are now, and I could stick the expenses in that budget for each township's plowing, and we'd be all set, but they won't let us do it. So, that was Jim's preference, and, you know, it's okay. But the town of Palatine can't do that, the state won't let us do it.
If we went to the, what was it, $4,000 in June or some other number?
Yeah.
So if we went to that, would that be under contract? Or?
Yes, contract income for us, contract expense for
So
them.
there would be a written contract, which was,
What I have suggested is an agreement similar to what we have with Montgomery County.
uh,
You know, we already have some experience doing that. And there you go again. We gotta talk to the lawyer. I don't wanna do it, you know, just, well, here's a contract. I want the lawyer to vet it.
I have an overwhelming question that maybe Artie can help me with. If it's costing us around $20K to do a couple of miles, and we're getting paid $57.50 from the county for the other, we're really getting soaked from the county.
Oh, yeah, we're not even close to breaking even plowing county roads.
Well, no, I'm asking you this because honestly, if it's costing you $10,000 a mile roughly, because there's only a couple of miles in Palatine Bridge, right? 2.54 up and back.
Well,
No,
The
this is
actual
for
mile,
the
the actual
streets.
mileage in the village is about 2.4 and 1 and.
Yeah, okay, so
2.5.
about 2.5. So it's about, okay, so we divide 20 by that.
But you gotta remember, 2.5 miles where the pickup truck is, 4 passes on every street. Up in the country, it's one each way with a truck.
No, I'm just saying
And it's a
that.
$200,000 truck versus a $25,000.
I understand. I'm saying this. Looking at this, what our cost is for this, I can't even imagine how much we're losing on the county
We're losing
contract.
plowing is county
Well,
roads.
you can't compare apples and oranges. Plowing in the country is not the same as plowing in the villages. It's just, it's
Different equipment, different rates,
Different material.
different material.
But
Sand's a heck of a lot cheaper than salt, but you can't use the sand down in the village because it plugs up storm sewers.
No, I understand. It's just I'm looking at this and saying, yeah, our costs. I'll bet you if we started looking at the cost of the large equipment, we're really just not you, but your patch is taking advantage of us.
Oh, it has been for
But-
forever.
But in years, and I mean years past, there's been a lot of times when we had mild winters that they were getting the money and not having to go out.
I've got to say, the agreements between the county and the towns are good for the underlying taxpayers of the county and the town. If you had to run county trucks over all the county roads, they'd be running over town roads, and the town guys are running over the county roads to get to where you have to plow. If you have the contract, you put the plow down, do them both. It's better for the taxpayers. Now, the same thing is true somewhat for the 2 villages in the town. I'm not saying that, you know, the town can do it cheaper. In fact, Artie thinks that the villages can do it cheaper themselves. And they have equipment to do it with. I mean, it might need some modification, So maybe they'd have to borrow some of ours for a year or two. I don't know. Let the guys who are doing the work and paying the bills work it out. I just want to be a temporary, I brought it to the table, all right? If I'm in trouble for it, I'm in trouble for it. That's the way it is. I want to try to be fair.
So do we have an actual number that we're looking at for,
Well, I put a proposal out to the board, I didn't put it in writing, and we have until January 1 to continue to discuss this, give the villages a little more chance to discuss it, and go from there. I'm not looking for a motion tonight. Think it over, look it over. You've got the numbers, we appreciate, I mean, it's unbelievable the numbers this guy has. It's terrific. Not every highway superintendent is doing that kind of stuff.
And just one other thing I wanna point out, that those numbers that we're using for the equipment, I went through and figured out how many gallons of fuel those two trucks used last winter, and averaged what the fuel cost for each month was by how many gallons they used each month, and it came out exactly within 2 cents of what
what the rate is?
per hour. It was so close, it was scary. So those numbers you're using, I know are real.
We've done a lot of work on it, but the answer here is moving. It's not the same all the time, snow plowing never is. And the answer with reasonable people that can work together is a lot different than arguing and fighting. I'd like to meet again with the boards of the two villages, and with Sean and with my bookkeeper that understands the state provisions with the bookkeeping. I don't understand all that stuff. I have to ask a lot of questions. Anybody else? We'll let this thing go until the next meeting then maybe.
Sean, can I get a copy at some point? Thank you, appreciate it.
Well, I just appreciate what you've been doing. I know you're trying to do the right thing. I know that there's been a lot of, people being upset and,
It's tax money, I understand, when you talk about tax money, all right, it's trouble, but it just had to be talked about. It is a classic case of misappropriation of funds. Okay, that's it, I guess, for my portion of the meeting. Any old business?
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, I got something under old business. I met with Eli Kurtz and about the Amish school signs. And the men on the school board are generating a letter that will be passed around and brought to the next meeting. So we'll have that done. Eli, by the way, is on the mend and out doing some stuff, so he's looking really much better. So it's great to see him back. But yes, that's
Good.
that's where we are on that. Okay.
Okay, we discussed the Canterbury Fire Department. We haven't heard from the St. Johnsville Fire Department, have we?
Two more, another year or
We
2
haven't
years.
heard from them, no. That's this year too. That's up this year.
That's this
Is it
year.
this year? And what's Afraida's in 2 years?
Huh?
When's Afraida?
What did we
Next
sign?
year?
I forget the duration on that contract.
There's 3 of everything was 3, but they rotate.
No, I think there's 2 and 2, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
I would have to look in the contracts to find out, but I do know St. Johnsville is up.
St. Johnsville's up, I'm sure of it. Okay, motion to pay the abstracts.
so moved.
Second.
Second. Okay, we got a motion and a second to pay the bills. Any discussion on stuff you didn't like in there? Or that big bill for the Crossroad blacktopping was in there.
Yeah, I thought the, this one.
Hot road.
Yeah.
Now, you do the shoulders after they're done, right?
Yeah.
That's what all that big pile was for. Okay,
Shoulder back up.
all right. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. No other motions? Okay, public comment. Yes.
All things being equal, you're gonna ask Nelson to pay the same amount as Palatine Bridge? I mean, he said
The
it
last
costs,
I have from the state, that is the only thing that looks anywhere as near reasonable, that is controllable from year to year. In Nelson's situation, because your tax base is a lot smaller than Palatine Bridge, and I don't look for the growth rate to be the same in assessment. So if you take our highway dollars and divide them by assessment, it'll just screw up worse. So I'm looking for an annual or a 2-year type of thing. And then, in addition to discussing that, we have the item where we're one truck short, and that's gonna involve a discussion about, well, do you wanna do one village then the other village? Or does one village wanna use their truck one year and the next village use their truck the next year? See, there's all kinds of possibilities there.
well, one possibility is that we pay 4,000, the same as.
Yeah, well, something like that.
All right, I have one other question on Mr. Cotton's
Yep.
figures here. You've got how much a dump body costs, how much a 1-ton truck, V-plow. Are these replacement costs, how you come up with these?
No, there's state reimbursement costs.
And reimbursing what?
You're reimbursing the fuel, the maintenance.
Well, you've got fuel down below, don't you?
No,
No.
it's all right in this,
So these don't cover the cost of the truck.
not for replacement, no. That's just what it costs to run that truck.
The dump, it costs $3.47 an hour to have a dump body on the truck.
Yes. And if there was a different style dump body on it, that'd be a different cost.
Okay, it looked to me like you were asking to pay for a truck twice, that's all.
No, because if you buy a truck,
Yeah.
the truck comes, the cabin chassis comes separate.
Mhm.
Then it's up to you whether you wanna put a dump body on it, or we can leave the dump body off and just mount a sander on it and be a permanent sander body on it. There's
Right.
different rates for different bodies.
We
Okay.
talked about a lot of different things,
Uh-huh.
and I'm sure you got a lot of different numbers. That's why we need to sit down again and go through this stuff and be sure everybody's clear
Yeah.
on these different
I
ideas.
just want to know if it would be the same
And
for
what they
both
cost.
villages, yeah.
Rich, I can get with you and I can explain this whole reimbursement book to you and how it works.
Well, just so I know we're not paying for one twice, going through
Nope.
this and then helping you buy a truck later, that's all.
No, that's just what it costs to